Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. My name is Nick.
My name's Dylan.
Together we are CV Productions, and this is our horror podcast.
It is indeed.
Today we're talking about Halloween 2.
Yeah, Halloween 2.
To be clear, it's Halloween 2 that came out in
1981. Not Rob Zombies.
Nope, not doing that one yet. We'll get to it.
Hopefully not.
So, as usual, we're going to go through an overview of the movie. We're going to talk about plot structure, continuity, things like that. We're going to talk a little bit about culture. And then I have a few trivia surprises for Dylan. We'll get into
All right.
So I'll let you kick it off, Dylan.
All right, Halloween 2, released on October 30th in 1981. It was directed by Rick Rosenthal, friend of John Carpenter, who produced and wrote the story along with Deborah Hill. He also did the music, as John Carpenter, by the way. And Dean Cundey reprises his role as cinematographer, which is apparent, but it's also apparent that he kind of lost a little bit of flavor along the way. But, that's okay. Budget for this movie was $2.5 million, and it made $25.5 million. So this movie was a success, not as much as the first one, but it did gain its money back, plus profit.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Rosenthal. So I know that he didn't really do a whole lot before this, but part of his career kind of bumped Sean Penn's career. He cast him in Bad Boys, and that was a huge, direction for Sean Penn. Rosenthal also did Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and he's a producer on Amazon's Transparent right now. He came back in the Halloween series too.
He did. He comes back later down the line in 2002 to, resurrect himself.
Halloween Resurrection.
In Halloween Resurrection.
And that one is full of lots of treats. We'll get to that one eventually.
Yeah, that one's good.
This one was almost in 3D.
Yeah, because 3D it's on the rising back then.
Yeah, I mean it's been around for a while. I think it was around since like the mid 90s, mid 1900s, early 1900s. But
yeah.
It was starting to hit like full swing. Things were cool in 3D.
It was cool to watch a 3D movie. And that's why a year later, Friday the 13th came out. Their third movie was all in 3D.
Man, and that is like one of my favorite 3D movies. It has so many shots that are purposely done for 3D.
Yeah.
It's in your face, and it's awesome when you're not watching it in 3D. I love it.
But I tried watching it in 3D. It's actually really difficult. Yeah, it hurts.
I also want to talk about some of the financing with this. So there was a lot of controversy, a lot of like issues. When you read about it, it gets kind of convoluted real quick. Basically, it seems like Carpenter and Yablans tried to come to an agreement. Carpenter was also trying to make The Fog.
Yeah.
At the same time, and it looks like they came to agreement, but there was a misunderstanding, and there's some suits there, and eventually they had to resolve the suits with a finalized agreement that,
yeah,
like you mentioned, like Carpenter was going to direct it, he was going to do the score, but Carpenter, I'm sorry, wasn't going to direct it, he was going to score and he was going to write it,
yeah,
but he wasn't going to direct it, he didn't want to direct it.
Right, and wasn't there a misunderstanding as well between the two at first?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned that a little bit. I think that, I think Carpenter thought that Yablans was going to produce The Fog.
Right.
And Yablans thought that he was going to do that and Halloween 2.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were not on the same page.
Yeah.
Carpenter did not really want to do this movie.
No, and nobody really wanted to do it.
No, except Yablans.
Yablans was just really pushing for it. Yeah. Money hungry.
Carpenter, he thought the story was done.
Yeah.
And I think Deborah Hill the same way. A lot of people thought, we told the story of Michael Myers. I don't know why we're revisiting it.
Mm-hmm.
Sequels did not do well. And it was something that they were over with. Even they wanted to, if they were going to do a sequel, they talked about doing a sequel in a high-rise apartment.
Yeah.
Years and years later, and that didn't pan out. So we'll see as we're going over the plot here that there are some things that Carpenter inserted during the writing and after the first cut, really to just try to get as much out of this film as possible and be competitive with slashers at the time, because slashers are really up on the rise right now.
Yeah, after the first Halloween came out, 2 years later, Friday came out, and another Friday came out,
Yeah.
and there's all these other independent horror movies that are just coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, so we'll get to it. So let's start with the continuity and plot structure then. Opening scene opens with Mr. Sandman by the Chordettes. I thought this was just a perfect opening. I like... this was one of the first films to do something like this too. Opening with a song that was kind of old-fashioned from the 50s. This isn't something that really was done in horror movies at all. And it continues. A lot of our other horror movies jump off this.
Even though this movie isn't as great as the first one, it still has aspects that stuck throughout the horror history.
Yeah, I mean, lots of... Jeepers Creepers had a, Jeepers Creepers song in it, the old-fashioned song. Tiptoe Through the Tulips was in Insidious. Hip to Be Square was in one of my favorite horror dramas, American Psycho.
Yep.
So it's cool that it's at a trend, even though people didn't really want to work on it. So we start off with having a complete recap. We have Michael awakening near the closet that's destroyed. There's some changes. There's no music at this point. In the first one, he rises and the music immediately starts, and that's one of my favorite parts of the ending, and that's not there. There are a couple different camera angles. We see Michael when he gets shot off the balcony from an outside perspective, which we don't see in the first one. And there's some cool brand new grass that's down there.
The grass grew.
Yeah, like quite a bit. It's very lush, and there's an imprint of his body on there where he was when he landed. I think it was probably a little bit much.
Yeah.
And then there's another really important thing that happens here.
The most outstanding part of all this, I would say, is that Loomis shoots him 6 times in the original film, but in this one, he shoots him 7 times. But it's a mistake, because throughout the whole film, Loomis still says that he shot him 6 times. So there is a little bit of a mistake that went on when writing the script. Or with whoever did the audio for this movie, accidentally added another gunshot.
Enough that has caused debate amongst Halloween lovers.
Yeah.
I honestly don't remember off the top of my head when they showed the pumpkin in the beginning of the credits.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's before the shots or after the shots.
It's after.
It's after the shots? Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the things that's changed. The pumpkin cracks and there's a skull inside. It's a really weird looking skull. It does not look like a normal skull.
No, it doesn't.
But I didn't know if that was something along the lines of, a new view from Michael's perspective. And, I don't know what symbolism they're trying to get at there.
I don't either. I don't think anybody really knows.
Hey, maybe they just thought it looked cool.
Yeah.
Or there's something kind of scary to do.
Yeah.
There's definitely more direct symbolism than we talked about in the 2018 Halloween and that type of scene. So we see Loomis start to break down and go crazy. He runs up to the cop car at one point and he starts shouting that I shot him 6 times. I shot him 6 times.
And it's the same audio cue. It's the same exact audio loop. It just goes on and on.
Right.
It's not. He didn't say it 3 times. They just repeated it 3 times.
But I love that it goes over and over again. It makes him seem like he's just going crazy. We get the famous pink robe. Maybe famous amongst just Halloween lovers.
Yeah.
But the pink robe from the Elrods. Sorry.
The real Elrods.
The real Elrods.
We don't know if they were real in the last one.
Right. We get a shot. He doesn't kill him either, actually.
No,
so
he doesn't
goes in there
kill
and he
them.
gets the knife, and they're watching the news, and I don't know why he doesn't kill them.
I don't either. He goes right next door and kills the girl in there.
He does, and I don't know if that's supposed to give us a clue. Maybe he only kills like young adults or teens.
Well, maybe with the first one where he was only killing babysitters, but that kind of falls off once he gets to the hospital.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, if they're not telling us that he only kills young adults and teens, which I guess you said in the hospital he kills
he still
adults.
kills adults in the hospital.
Yeah,
so.
I'm not really sure why he wouldn't. Maybe they're saying he's so hurt he didn't kill them, because there was a speck of blood on the cutting board.
Yeah.
I don't know. Who knows what they're getting at? We're getting a shot of Michael walking outside, though, which I thought was kind of interesting because the first movie, all of the shots of him are from his perspective and like a little bit to the side. You hear a lot of breathing and stuff.
We're stalking through his eyes.
We are. And we have that at the very beginning of this movie.
Right.
And then it cuts to like a full shot of him walking that we see from an outside perspective, a third person perspective. So this shows a little bit was what Rosenthal was. He was bringing his own viewpoint to this movie, even though the movie is back to back, just seconds after the first one.
Yeah.
If that, it's seamless, which makes it hard for the director to kind of make it his own. If he has to have something that's completely seamless like that, he has to have color the same, direction the same, everything like that.
Yeah, it sucks. But he brings it back though with Resurrection. He's able to do his own thing in that one.
He definitely does. We get Michael is played by Dick Warlock.
Yep.
So he was a stunt coordinator for 2 and 3. He's a stunt artist. He's been in a lot of big films. He's kind of Kurt Russell's stunt artist.
Yeah.
He was in Escape from New York. He was in Big Trouble in Little China. And the last thing that he did was in the 2002 Spider-Man. He acted as a city official before he retired. I think it's the same mask that was in the original Halloween.
Yeah, I heard that it was the same mask. It definitely doesn't look like the same mask, though.
I mean, if it's the same mask, that it doesn't look great. I do not like the way the mask looks in this one. It looks kind of loose on the neck. Yeah. It looks like it just doesn't look like it fits well.
Kind of looks like a baby face.
Yeah, a little bit. So maybe it is the same mask that just got neglected over the past 2 years.
Yeah, I don't know.
Who knows? Or a couple, no more than 2 years. We have you mentioned Alice. She's a teenager in there. She dies.
Yeah.
She's the first death, and when he kills her, there's a blood splatter on the face.
Yeah.
This sets the scene that this movie is already more bloody than the first one, and we see Carpenter do that over and over again because they ran the movie. They had the first cut. Didn't think that it was competitive enough. Didn't think it was scary enough. He had to compete with all the blood that was going on in all the other new slashers. A lot of the new slashers like My Bloody Valentine, Happy Birthday to Me, Terror Train, all these things had Friday the 13th. They had a lot of blood.
Yeah.
So he went back after the first cut and added a whole bunch of blood and some new scenes to it.
I don't think it was necessary, but maybe at the time. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it really added anything. That's actually one of the reasons why I like the first one, is that without being super gory, it's still kind of frightening.
Yeah.
We're then led to we see Jimmy, the paramedic. He after Alice dies, Jimmy's the lead in Last Starfighter.
It's a coincidence because Nick Castle directed it,
right? All these people work together. I loved Last Starfighter though, so that was a big moment for me. The Hadfield Memorial Hospital. The first shot is this kid in a pirate costume. He's bleeding from the mouth.
And what happened is he has a razor blade in his mouth. And I guess this is when like suspicions were high. People were afraid that their kids were going to bite into a piece of candy. There's going to be a razor blade in it. Mm-hmm. That's actually never happened ever. There's no recorded incident of there being a razor blade in the piece of candy.
I don't know if your mom did, but I know my mom always warned me to check all my candy.
Yeah, I had to do that too.
I never found anything in that candy.
Search for little holes and stuff.
Yeah, some people put poison in it. And stuff.
Yeah, dangerous.
These bring the realness to life. I don't know if this is part of Carpenter, like in the first one, he wanted this urban legend around this town that brought to life. I don't know if he's trying to bring more urban legends to life here.
Yeah, candy's scary.
Yeah. When we see Laurie out of the ambulance, so there's a couple shots from her perspective, and then there's some shots from an outside perspective of her on the gurney going through the hallway. And I could be reading too much into this, but my thought was maybe because this is the film where we find out that Laurie is the sister of Michael Myers,
right?
And I didn't know if this was foreshadowing in any way that Michael has the same type of shots in this movie, whereas from his perspective, and we get some from Laurie's perspective.
Possibly. Also possibly not, though.
Yeah, I could be reading into it way too much. And then next we get some shots of Dr. Mixter, who was drunk at the country club and rushes to the hospital to attend to Laurie.
Yeah, 10 out of 10 doctor.
We get a couple weird up close shots of a needle. I don't know if this is them trying to promote some uncomfortableness inside of horror, or there's some blood in the surround. People have phobias from that too.
Yeah, from needles and stuff.
So I don't know if this is trying to show something in your face, but there's a couple scenes, and I feel like they're kind of forced. I don't think they're like a lot of the gore you're saying. I don't think it's absolutely needed. You could tell it definitely seems like it was added in afterwards.
Right.
Probably my favorite part in the in all the podcasts we've done, all 2 of them that we've done.
Yeah.
This is my favorite part. We see a kid in a Michael Myers mask walking in the street.
Yeah, and specifically Loomis sees him as well, which is that's very dangerous. If Loomis sees you in a Michael Myers mask and he pulls out his gun and he's about to shoot him and he runs in the street, and what happens?
He pulls out his gun and he's like, almost seems like he's wildly just moving it around.
Yeah,
like
Halloween night.
Could shoot anybody Halloween night. Yeah, and he's running after this guy and he's screaming at him to stop.
Yeah.
And this guy in this Halloween mask, who happens to be he's not wearing a jumpsuit, but he's wearing a button-up shirt and pants, and they're the same color as the jumpsuit. They look just like Michael Myers. So he happens to look just like Michael Myers. And this guy ignores Loomis and slowly just starts walking across the street.
Yeah.
Slowly.
He like waddles almost.
And out of nowhere, this van comes and smacks him. This car comes and smacks him into a van and explodes in flame.
And it was a cop car.
It was a cop car that hit him. And this guy comes out of the cop car and he's like, he came out of nowhere. He came out of nowhere, slowly walking across the street. And who is this guy? Who's this masked man?
This is a person we've mentioned in every podcast so far. This is the man himself, Ben Tramer. The only time you see him in the movie.
You don't even see his actual face.
No.
You just see him getting charred, and they show his burnt body later.
Yeah. Poor guy.
Yeah. He has the greatest death in the movie, though.
Yeah, he does. I think it was a missed opportunity to make what's his name? The paramedic? Jimmy. To make Jimmy Ben Tramer. I don't know why they didn't just do that.
I mean, they didn't set it up in the first film if they wanted to film it in a hospital.
They didn't set any of this up in the first film.
No, because they didn't. They thought it was done. Yeah, and the hospital thing was kind of an issue for them too. They were like playing. It was right next to an airport. It was really hard for them to film there. I don't know why they chose a hospital. I'm just gonna blame it on the Oblins. I don't know. But after Ben Tramer dies, we see my favorite actor in the entire movie.
Yeah.
He's one of the leads. We see Officer Hunt, and he has some of the greatest acting in the Halloween series, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's almost like he's auditioning for like a Romeo and Juliet play, you know? That's what it's like. That's how his acting is like.
It does seem like, if I go back to my high school and I watched Romeo and Juliet or any Shakespeare play or anything that like some kids were putting on, there's a good chance I would see some similar acting. Yeah. Yeah, he's my favorite. I love him. And we see Dana Carvey there. Dana Carvey plays a non-speaking role. He's wearing a blue baseball cap.
Yeah.
He's talking to a reporter. If you don't know David Carvey, I hope you do. He's from Wayne's World. He's a famous comedian, been on Saturday Night Live. I don't know how long. He's pretty amazing. I don't even know. I didn't look this up. I should have. I don't know if this was his breakout role. Was in Halloween 2.
Possibly.
We say so. Officer Hunt and Loomis are discussing what to do, with Ben Tramer.
Yeah.
Figure out if it was Michael Myers or not, and he says, "Get the dentist. Call the dentist immediately. It's late at night. I don't have any idea what time it is.
It's gotta be late. Well, we can assume that the first movie ended like maybe 11 to midnight, around there somewhere.
Yeah." It's got to be late to wake up the dentist to go identify a charred body.
Yeah.
And they still need to get the medical records from the hospital that's hours away. Or the sanitarium that's hours away. I don't know.
Doesn't make sense.
It's crazy, but it reminded me of this Twilight episode called let's call Lost Little Girl, and there's this girl gets lost behind this other dimension. The parents can hear her, but they can't see her, and the main character, the husband, he says, "I gotta call my friend. Get the physicist." And he gets on the phone with the physicist, and the physicist come over and he explains the dimensions and perfectly everything. Just get the physicist. I like it. So we're then cut to the hospital.
Yep.
We show Bud, and all Bud's doing is he's smoking out. He's talking about wanting pizza, and he's watching the news, and they're showing the murders and everything on the news. And he says something like, "This looks like Homecoming," and I don't exactly know what he meant.
Yeah.
I mean, I have an idea.
I don't know either, at all, actually.
I think that it could possibly be a reference to Carrie. I know Carrie was at prom, and there were all those murders, and these were a bunch of kids. I don't know if they're alluding to something like that. I know Carrie has had influence on the Halloween movies. Otherwise, I don't know. So if you know, please let us know. There's a horror trip that comes up really soon after that. We see the guard just kind of let Michael come into the hospital.
Yeah, typical guard, not paying attention.
Not paying attention to the monitors. But the monitors are my favorite part of this whole movie, actually.
Yeah.
I love seeing all of the scenes in like this kind of staticky black and white like background.
It's almost like a found footage.
It is, and I do like some found footage movies a lot.
Yeah.
So that was good. We also have the second original song in the Halloween series.
Third, isn't it the third? Oh, they played on the radio. That's right.
They played on the radio. So the second one is Bud is singing to Karen, the nurse. He sings right after she leaves, I believe. He sings "Amazing Grace, come sit on my face. Don't make me cry. I need your pie." That is not in anywhere or anything else.
He made it up on the spot.
Really creative. We get a scene from Michael's perspective when he's in the nursery. He chooses not to kill any kids.
Yeah.
I don't know what this says about Michael, or if it was just something that... I mean, I don't think they're going to have him kill kids, especially in the 80s. I don't think they're going to show a film where he kills little babies.
Yeah.
This also is kind of referenced in the Halloween 2018.
Yeah, I wonder if this is where they got the idea from.
I mean, when I read about it, it didn't seem like it was. It seemed like it was kind of a spur of the moment thing. But it definitely, if you're trying to fit in continuity in all of these different timelines in any way, or just what type of person Michael is, those two things could fit, even though they might not have been intentions from the directors individually. Michael, here's another horror trope that comes up soon. Michael cuts the phone lines.
Yeah.
This happens, I don't know in how many horror movies where the phone lines are cut and communication can't happen.
And Michael does this constantly too throughout the series. So
he does. And actually something interesting about cutting the phone lines, that is not something that can happen in modern day horror films. You have to get rid of a satellite signal.
Yeah, because we all have mobile now.
Yeah. It's hard to film these type of slasher movies in a setting, in a modern setting. Yeah. You have to bring them out into the woods where they have no communication or something like this.
Just make a modern movie based in the 80s.
Yeah, you could do that. I think that's probably the easiest thing. Where the cop is called out to go investigate the cut phone lines.
Yeah. And he doesn't tell the nurse how to use the walkie-talkie.
He just gives it to her, and she's like, "I don't know what it's good." She even says, "I don't know how to use it," and he's like,
he just ignores her.
Just hold it, it's fine.
Yeah.
And he kind of dies, and she has no idea what's going on because she doesn't know how to use the walkie-talkie.
Yeah.
Right before he dies, though, he opens up. He's looking for Michael, and he opens up a trash can.
Yeah.
And this cat just jumps out and screams at him. Now, I have a lot of cats at my house. Me and my wife own a lot of cats, and I have never seen a cat. We've fostered cats over the past decade, lots and lots of them. Never seen a cat do anything like this before.
Hey man, those strays, they'll get you.
We foster lots of stray. This must be crazy stray.
They are crazy stray, like cocaine stray.
This happens in like tons and tons and tons of horror movies.
It does.
So it's like the cat scare. We're then brought over to the autopsy scene where they have the dentist looking at the remains, and he's like, "Man, I can't tell anything from this information."
He's 17 years old. Hey, can you get the age? Is that actually like easy to do just from teeth?
I don't really know. I know my wife's watched lots of Bones,
Oh, okay.
and I know Bones can, because it's obviously real.
Yeah.
I know Bones can look at like any bone and be like, that person had their appendix out when they were 3 years old. Like she knows everything about everybody. So just by looking at it, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna give it to him. Dennis
okay.
can figure
Dennis,
out.
he's good Dennis.
Doesn't even he didn't even I don't even recall him having any instruments. I think he just looked at the teeth. He was like, obviously this is
Yeah.
someone.
He had like he was scraping the teeth.
Oh, he did. Okay, he scraped it. He did say, I think it's because it didn't really have any cavities or anything like that. That it must have been somebody that was younger.
Don't kids have cavities the most, right? Because they don't brush.
Do actually a lot of my nieces and nephews who are quite young have filled cavities, but a lot of times they don't do it with kids because their teeth just fall out.
I guess.
But I've seen it happen with kids nowadays where maybe it didn't happen back then.
Yeah, I don't know. He's 17.
But we see a burnt body, like I already mentioned, just escalating the shock factor of how like gory this movie can be compared to the original.
Yeah.
How much is inserted in there. And then the next thing notable that I put down here is we have Laurie's dream sequence. We see this has to be the time where Laurie realizes Michael Myers is her brother.
Yeah, which is weird to just kind of come out of nowhere like now, because well, first of all, she finds out in this movie that Michael Myers is the person who was after her, because she doesn't know in the first movie at all. Which is something we kind of overlook too.
She thinks it's either some guy or the boogeyman.
Yeah, she has no idea what's happening. She's kind of just thrown into the situation.
And I tried to pay attention to the communication that happened with her at the hospital and right before the hospital to see if anybody mentioned anything. And Jimmy mentioned that was Michael Myers. And they have a conversation about Michael Myers, but nothing to do with... I mean, she's shocked. And she's like, I thought that he was locked up. And he's like, no, he escaped. There's nothing that shows Laurie would have this recollection of, oh, he's my brother.
Right. Like, this would be something that she would have had the thought of before.
Yeah.
Or think of before.
And it could be the fact that she doesn't know. That's a possibility through the film. That she doesn't know, but then this dream sequence doesn't really make a lot of sense when she sees him there. Unless she is just seeing she knows Michael Myers is hunting her.
Yeah.
And her dream sequence is seeing Michael Myers. She doesn't know it's her brother. She's just seeing Michael Myers because she's terrified of him.
Right.
It could be the case that the only person who knows that Laurie is his sister is Loomis at the end. Loomis and Marion and the officer who just happens to be in the marshal who just happens to be in the car. Those might be the only people in the whole film who know that.
Yeah.
And then inadvertently the audience. I could buy it either way. I could see how maybe Laurie wouldn't know.
It doesn't matter?
Not really.
It doesn't
because
really
nobody
matter.
likes the idea of this happening anyways, even though it kind of sets up the rest of the films.
Yeah.
Until they decide to reboot it.
Yeah.
And it gives us H2O, which I kind of liked H2O.
Yeah.
But it doesn't fit in. And something interesting about that too, I know that when Carpenter originally wrote this twist in,
yeah,
it was Empire Strikes Back. It came out, and we had the whole Luke, I am your father, which actually I don't think he actually says Luke, I am your father.
No, he doesn't. He just says I'm your father.
Yeah, that's one of the Berenstain universe or something like that. One of those conspiracy theory where it was set in another alternate universe, but it wasn't.
Yeah. Oh man, I forget what that's called.
I thought it was Berenstain.
It's not Berenstain.
No. Oh.
It's a ruler, a famous ruler.
We'll look it up.
Okay.
We'll bring it back. We'll look it up after our break because that is something that's crazy. Anyways, so big twist in Empire Strikes Back, huge hit in the theaters. Carpenter wanted to possibly include some type of big twist in this film as well to kind of grab the audience. And from what I understand, that's why this was put in.
Yeah, that's the big twist.
Yeah.
Which, looking at it now, it doesn't seem like a twist.
Right.
We kind of all just assume that when going into it.
Yeah. But we're led to Karen and Karen's death scene.
Yeah. She's a nurse.
She's a nurse and she gets naked.
Yeah.
So that's our naked scene of the movie, I guess.
The only one.
Yeah. I think that most Halloween films have one.
Yeah, at least one.
So the third one doesn't have anything, does it?
Third one is like almost.
Yeah. But he kills her in a really interesting way that becomes kind of iconic, but it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
So they're in this hot tub. Karen and Bud are in this hot tub together. Bud goes out of the hot tub to
lower the temperature because it was too hot.
Too hot for her. There's a sign on there that says, I believe, don't turn over 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
And so Bud's checking it out by just tapping.
Yeah. Does he actually even turn?
No.
He just taps the meter.
He's just tapping the meter, and like a typical horror film, we see Karen is in the room with the hot tub while Bud's in another room with the meter, and Bud gets strangled by Michael Myers. But Karen can't. She has her back to it.
Yeah.
So the audience can see it. She doesn't know what's going on, and that's something that happens a lot in horror. That's another trope.
Yeah, where people are like listening to music and somebody's dying in the background.
Yeah, something's happening you just can't see. It's an important piece of information. You need to run now.
Yeah.
I'm sure that happens. It's been a while since I've seen the Scream movies. I'm sure it happens in the Scream movies.
Right.
I know it happens in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
But back to the water and the temperature. So Michael goes in there to kill her, and apparently he turned up the temperature
right
to 125 degrees Fahrenheit.
Was it 140? I thought the lowest or the highest degree you could go was 140.
Let's assume he put it to 140.
Okay.
Water doesn't even boil to 212 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So it would not be possible for him to have her face just blister and melt off in that water. But he does. Mm-hmm. He dunks her in there and twists and melts her face off, and his hands don't get harmed either.
Nope.
His hands are constantly going in the tank just as much as her face is, but they're perfectly fine. So poor Karen dies.
Yeah.
But not before we have the scene where Michael pretends like he's Bud.
Yeah, he does that a lot. I think this one was kind of on accident. Most of them are on accident, I think. Unless he puts a cloth over him.
Well, it's like the Bobby scene that we had in the first one, except and Karen gets into it. Karen's like licking and biting his fingers. And...
It's weird. Nasty.
So I think that let's take a break here.
Yeah.
And we got some. Michael goes to well, not Michael, but Loomis and Officer Hunt go to a school, and we get to see some really cool stuff at the school.
Way more information.
Oh, yeah, way more information about the whole
sister thing,
and a little bit about the what type of rituals are behind this whole system of Michael Myers and Halloween.
Okay, on break.
We have some information.
Yeah, real quick about the theory we were talking about with Luke, I am your father. The theory is it's called the Mandela effect, is what it's called, and it's just when people recall something, usually things that people say in movies and stuff like that, and that just never happened. Like those things are never said. A lot of people think that Darth Vader said, "Luke, I am your father," but he just says, "I am your father." He never says Luke.
Yeah, and I was thinking of I think it's the Berenstain or the Berenstain Bears.
Yeah.
Some people remember it one way or the other.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's the effect. That was the effect. I couldn't remember the name of it.
All right, back to Halloween 2. So I'm gonna pick us up at the school.
Yeah.
So we go to the school, and honestly, and I've mentioned this a couple times with you. I want to go through some of these horror movies, and I want to show it from the villain's perspective, a slasher's perspective.
Yeah.
Because there is so much that Michael does in this movie. We see him go to the school, He's at the house at the beginning. We see him walk around. He does all kinds of things at the hospital. We mentioned later that he's out in the parking lot doing stuff and slashing tires. He's all around setting bodies up and things like that constantly. He's walking around scaring people and hiding in shadows. Like, I want to see it from his perspective and how he's running around and doing all this stuff.
Yeah, it's got to be like a close time.
I know. It's kind of impressive. I don't know. I thought it was cool. Anyway, so he eventually gets to a school at some point.
Yeah, at some point he's at school.
And so they... this almost reminded me of something like Airplane the movie. But it shows them at the school, and they're the officers showing them all the evidence that Michael left. And so first they show some blood on a desk. And they're like, "Is that it?" And the officer's like, "No, check this out." And they move over, and there's a clean knife. It's no blood on it. That's just stabbed into the top of a desk. And underneath the desk where it's stabbed in is it's a teacher's desk, by the way, is a picture in crayon, like a little children's picture, and it's stabbed on the little girl in the picture like it's the sister.
Yeah, sister. That's what Loomis says. Sister.
And then they're like, "Was that it?" He's like, No, check this out. And then they show some blood, writing in blood all over the board right next to them, that says, now I'm saying this wrong. I say Sam Hain, but it does not.
Yeah, they actually say Sam Hain in the movie. It's actually pronounced Saw Win.
Saw Win. So I'm gonna try to say that every time we mention it. I'm gonna get it wrong. Totally sorry about that. But I like the crayon picture of the family, because it was at it looked like it was in Laurie's high school, or if it's a small town, I guess they just have all of the classrooms there. But it didn't look like it was like a little kid's classroom. So I like to think that Michael drew that picture in crayon and then stabbed the little girl to give them a clue of what was going on. And then as part of this continuing, Samhain? Part of Samhain, where we're having this one. I mean, this is what Carpenter and Hill wrote about in the first one. They like this idea of Halloween, this idea of Samhain. One night a year, dead come alive, or supernatural come alive, and crazy stuff happens to perpetuate this urban myth. So we show maybe there's more. There's something more sinister that's actually tangible besides this. Maybe there's some type of mysticism or something that's going on here. So I kind of like that, but I think that the whole scene is kind of funny. Oh, and we're cut over to Dr. Mixter's death at the hospital.
Yeah, this is the part in the hospital where Michael just decides to start killing everybody one by one.
Yeah, I don't know why he I don't know why he chooses who he kills in this film, but I think he kills everybody in this hospital.
Yeah, he just kills everybody in the hospital.
With the exception of Jimmy, I can see the argument that Jimmy lived.
Jimmy just lived on accident.
He might not have. He might have died. I'm not really sure what happened with his brain trauma. We'll get to that. But so we see Dr. Mixter, and they're looking for Dr. Mixter because Laurie is non-responsive right now. Yeah. So Laurie's at the hospital, and they think that they've given her some medication that didn't sit well, and she's comatose with her eyes open, which is really strange. I mean, they shown lights in her face. I mean, they even gave her she didn't want to get put to sleep. Right. And they forced the drugs into her to put her to sleep. I don't really know why that was so important. That we put her to sleep, but two, why she didn't want to be put to sleep. I know she wanted to be alert in case Michael came, I guess. But I'm not really sure. So we're back, and Dr. Mixter is dead. They find him dead with a syringe in his eye.
Yeah, we don't know if something was injected to him or if it was just air, or we don't know.
But Michael, the nurse that checks on him and finds him dead, Michael sticks her with a syringe in the temple and injects a bunch of air into her.
That one's clearly air.
So Michael is creative. He knows all different ways of killing people.
Yeah, he knew that. Even being locked up for so many years, he knew that you could kill someone with air.
Right. It takes a decent amount of air to be able to inject in the bloodstream. Now, the brain's probably a different story, but the bloodstream. They show in these movies where, you have air that the people put in your IV
Yeah.
and you die. I remember I've had surgery a couple times, and the first time I did, you see like chunks of air go through your IV into your veins. I'm like, am I gonna die? But no, it takes a decent amount of air to kill you that way.
Yeah.
Anyways, Michael kills her, and then for the reveal, so he kills her, and he has the classic face reveal, the shot to kill that nurse with
his face fades in.
Yeah. Which we see in the first one, so they're repeating some of the shots, and that's just one of the coolest shots in the first one. So I like that they paid homage to that in this one.
And they do it a lot throughout the whole franchise.
They do. But when he kills her, he kind of just he takes a second, and his head gets cocked back and forth, the whole Nick Castle looking at butterfly kind of way. And
you have a theory.
I do Samhain, right?
Samhain.
Okay, Samhain. So there's a conversation that Loomis has with Marion later. And he brings up this Samhain kind of culture that has people who are sacrificed by fire.
Mm-hmm.
It also he mentions that there are when you kill somebody, you have druids, I believe, that would kill people.
Yeah.
And when they would kill people, they would foresee things that would happen in the future. So I don't know if this is maybe Michael after he kills somebody, he looks at them and tries to see things that might happen to him in the future, or just tries to predict things, and he's trying to find himself there. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
But if that's their intention, it plays out well. I don't know if that's too deep for this movie, since nobody wanted to make it.
Yeah.
But I like to think that was their intention. And then, wait a minute. Lori is not. She's not comatose. She was faking it the whole time.
Yeah, she was faking it.
Michael goes in there to kill her after he killed everybody else, and there's pillows instead of her body there. She pulls a famous trick that kids do, the Ferris Bueller trick.
Yeah.
But so she's running away. We see her run into a room, and we can only assume that she's just been terrified of Michael the whole time, and she knew that he was going to come there regardless.
Yeah, we don't really know. Well, we can. It's weird because she doesn't want to go to sleep, but that's before her flashback, which is when we can assume she finds out or connects the dots that she is his sister. So we don't really know if she's just terrified,
mm-hmm.
or if she actually thinks that Michael's still going to come after her because she connected those dots.
Right. In either case, she knows that he's there.
Yeah.
There's a scene where Jimmy's talking about protecting her.
Right.
So she knows that he's there, and she goes into this room and she tries to make a phone call, which is kind of strange because she knows the phone lines were cut. Maybe she thinks it could have gotten fixed, but she knows that they're cut, so I don't know why she would have picked up the phone and tried to call.
I mean, you might as well, right? At this point, you're all alone.
Right.
Anything to make you feel better.
We see Jimmy running around trying to find her.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a scene where Jimmy's in front of a room talking to one of the nurses, and you see Michael's shadow in the background on a curtain. Yeah. And that I wish they would have filmed the whole film like that. I wish they would have had like these subtle parts of Michael in the background here and there, kind of more like the first film.
Right.
I didn't want it to be in your face because it's like someone's stalking everybody here instead of just having him with all these third-person shots.
Yeah, and it's weird because it's pretty much the same crew who made this movie. So it's weird that they didn't just do that anyways.
Yeah, I read somewhere that Carpenter and Hill drank lots and lots of beer.
Yeah.
When they were writing the script.
I know that they didn't care at all. But like Dean Cundey with his cinematography, I don't know why he wouldn't just like suggest like, hey, we should have more shots where Michael's lingering in the background, because it's like the first film, especially because it takes place the same night.
Yeah, I thought it worked better. I thought the first one, the tone and everything worked so much better.
Yeah.
We see Jimmy find Miss Alves. She's strapped to a table and she has all the blood drained out of her.
Yeah.
Which is strange because so Jimmy slips and falls in the blood. But when he opens up the door and first sees Miss Alves, he doesn't notice all the blood all over the ground anywhere.
No, he goes up right next to her. And he would have had to walk through blood to get to her.
He would have been splashing in it.
Yeah. And then he turns around and slips and falls.
Yeah, and then Jimmy's out.
Yeah, he's out for a little bit.
Yeah, he comes back later, but we assume that he's had some type of severe head trauma from this fall.
Yeah, concussion or something.
Yeah. All right, so after Jimmy gets out, we see Nurse Jills, and she runs outside looking for anybody, trying to figure out what's going on. All these people are missing.
Yeah.
She knows that her tires are slashed.
Right.
She starts to freak out. She looks over. She says more tires are slashed.
All the tires are slashed.
Michael was busy. So she runs back inside, and she sees Lori.
Yeah.
And Lori is
down the hall.
She's walking down the hall. She's stumbling. She's a little groggy, and we have what my favorite scene in the whole movie is. Lori turns around. There's no music in the background. Nothing goes on. Completely silent. You see her have tunnel vision. It shows Michael appear right behind Jill.
Yeah.
And Michael stabs her just like he did Bobby. Lifts her up into the air, which is really impressive because it's just with the tip of the scalpel that he stabs her.
Scalpel.
Just the tip of the scalpel. He stabs her and lifts her up into the air. But you see her feet point down and the shoes fall, and immediately the music for the movie kicks in.
Yeah.
And the chase is on between Lori and Michael. And I don't know if we mentioned it, but the music in this, there's really no piano. It's all the same tone, same music. It's just all synthesizer.
Yeah.
Which was a big change from the first film. I actually thought the piano seemed a little bit more eerie. I liked it.
Yeah, it did.
But I'm fine with a modern synth version in the 80s. I think that works well too. We talked about in the first podcast about how Carpenter was starting to get a better feel for synth, even though he didn't really like it. He liked the punch that it had with it.
Right. I think that the music is fine.
Yeah. So we see Lori running around. Lori runs into the first body that Michael set up, the security guard that died.
The security guard, yeah.
He's hanging, and so she gets scared. And so Lori runs over, eventually finds her way to an elevator. She gets in the elevator, and Michael is slowly walking towards the elevator.
Yeah, as it's coming down.
And as the door is shutting, he's slowly walking there, and he just sticks his hand and it gets stuck in the elevator. Now I know all of the elevators that I'm familiar with. When you put your hand in there, there's sensors in it that will make it open again. Not this one.
Have you been in an elevator in 81?
I haven't been in an elevator in 81 at the bottom of a hospital.
You don't know, dude.
Yeah, it very well could be. In any case, if Michael would just walk just a little faster.
Yeah.
Just even like just a small skip. I think he would have made it there.
Yeah. Which is something that you'd think that he would think about, right? When he's walking, he's like, I'm gonna get her. Right. And then it's like, if he would have just like sped up just a little bit, just like a little jump in there somewhere, he would have got her.
Right. Yeah. Typical Michael. Walk as slow as you can.
Yeah.
He's tricksy though. We know that. He's smart.
Yeah.
He's responsive. So after this scene where his hand gets stuck and the elevator goes up, we're cut to Loomis.
Yep. Loomis. They're in the marshal's car, and he's being sent back to the sanitarium.
Yeah. At the school, I don't know if we mentioned it. Marion shows up and he's like, Loomis. He's like, oh, I almost didn't recognize you.
It's like the night before.
It's the night before he just hung out with her. I don't know why he wouldn't recognize her. But she says that the marshals come to take him away.
Yeah. Because
of all the craziness that's been going on.
Shooting his gun.
He doesn't need to be there anymore. It's too much.
Yeah.
So Marion reveals to Loomis that there's been a secret file that has been put away that nobody has seen.
It's been hidden. It's
been hidden until this very night when it needed to be revealed.
Yeah.
And that's when we find out Lori is Michael's sister.
Yep, that makes it official right there.
It does. And we also get this monologue that I already mentioned from Loomis talking about how Samhain and how all of this, rituals by fire and by observing murderers to predict the omens of the future and things like that.
Right.
Then we go to the chase. Chase is on. Laurie's running away from Michael. She finds her way outside. She gets in a car. Tires are slashed. She can't start the car.
Yeah.
So she just kind of hides in the car.
She just hides in the car for a little bit.
And then we get kind of a little jump scare. We get Jimmy who gets into the car. And he is out.
He has no idea what's happening.
He looks like a zombie. And he looks over and he's like, oh, yeah. Yeah, well, don't worry. We'll be okay.
And then he passes out and onto the horn.
He could have died maybe or something. But we hear a horn blast. Laurie freaks out. She gets out of the car and starts running. We see Michael at that point come out of the shadows. And Laurie runs towards the door in the hospital.
No. That is wrong.
Is it?
Yes.
What happened?
Loomis shows up. And she stumbles out of the car and she's calling for him.
Yeah. And she can't shout really loud until he's out of sight.
Until he's inside.
She kind of squeaks.
Yeah. She still stays in the car with passed out Jimmy for a little bit. And then Loomis shows up and she stumbles out and she tries to yell at them, but she can't yell until they're actually inside.
Right. And then they get inside and Laurie runs towards the door when Michael's coming towards her.
And then Michael comes out of the shadows and she runs to the door.
And it's another instance where if Michael just would have walked just a little bit faster,
just a little bit,
he would have got her.
But it doesn't matter because he just walks straight through the door anyways.
Yeah, he walks through the glass pane like it doesn't exist.
It's not even there.
Which is a step up in Michael's superpowers.
Yeah.
And then he gets shot 5 more times?
Yeah, 5 more times.
Yeah. So he's been shot, if we take account 7 times, the dude has been shot 12 times so far in this one night. So he's lying on the floor, he's out.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else doesn't really know exactly what to do. The officer wants to take him away. The officer gets too close and Michael kills him. Slashes him through the throat. In this scene, I thought that Laurie has probably the most appropriate line out of the whole movie. She's and the most terrifying. She just is above herself. She said, "Why can't he die?
Yeah,
he gets shot 12 times and he comes back.
Stabbed a couple times too.
I think that's crazy appropriate.
Yeah,
we see that over and over, and this is true for lots of slasher films we had mentioned before in other podcasts that you just can't have them die.
Right.
Or else there's no sequel or anything. So we're just left with Laurie and Loomis and Michael.
Yeah.
And they go running through the hospital, find a room, and they hide in the room. Michael finds them and starts, actually stabs Loomis first.
Yeah, stabs Loomis. But Loomis does give Laurie the marshal's gun. He
does. She doesn't even want it. Just lays it in front of her. And another thing that's notable about that scene, we can see Michael's superpowers step up again. Not only can he break through glass like it's nothing, he broke through that door like it was balsa wood.
Yeah.
It was like just nothing to him. It was pretty awesome. So he approaches Laurie, and Laurie says his name.
Yeah.
And that makes him stop for a second and think. And I didn't know if this was a reference to when Michael, as a little kid, approached Judith Myers.
Right.
And Judith said, Michael, and he stabbed her. So I don't know if Laurie's recreating the situation where he killed his sister, if that's making him stop and think and realize where he is.
Yeah. If
this is what he wants to do. Or it could have just been thrown in there. I don't know. Again, it's this Michael being curious moments that we're not exactly sure.
Yeah, he has a lot of those.
Yeah, and I like to think about seeing Futurama. Now I do, at least. So Laurie picks up the gun and shoots him in the eyes.
Yeah, perfectly in the eyes.
Perfect shot. I don't know if she's ever shot a gun before. We know by 2018 she has a crack shot.
Yeah.
Shoots him perfectly in the eyes. We see his eyes just slowly bleed. Michael's been shot now 14 times.
Yep.
And these 2 shots stuck. He can't see now.
Right. Which is weird. Other
ones didn't matter. He's still mobilized. So he immediately forgets where Laurie is.
Yeah, which is weird as well.
And just starts swinging the scalpel wildly across the room. And Loomis comes to and starts letting go the gas nozzles.
Yeah.
And which is actually kind of a neat scene.
It is.
I like he's blind, and then the gas whining kind of drowns out all of his hearing, so he has two senses taken away from him. He's very disoriented.
Yeah.
I like that idea of putting the killer in that position.
Yeah, it is cool. I mean, I've never seen it before this.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny how he's just swinging wildly at kind of anything and kind of just following the noise. You know, that kind of reminds me a little bit of Bloodsport. Have you seen Bloodsport?
No.
Oh man. Frank Dukes gets blinded at the very end, and I'm not going to ruin it for you, but he kind of acts in a similar manner too. Anyway, so Loomis decides to sacrifice himself.
Yeah, he tells Laurie to run out the room.
Sacrifice himself in fire.
He ignites with his yellow lighter.
Which he got from Officer Hunt.
Yeah.
When he offered him a smoke.
Yep.
And the place explodes. I think this is a reference to Samhain when he talks about the Druids having fire sacrifices. I hope that they're saying that this is the only way to get rid of Michael, and Loomis realizes this.
Yeah, that might have actually been the only reason why Samhain was even put in this movie, was so that they can kind of have an excuse to kill Michael off.
It could be. The movies that follow this, at least movies 4 and after,
yeah.
We know Michael lives. We know Loomis lives.
Yeah.
And they were engulfed in flame.
Right.
I'm okay with Michael living. Michael has become supernatural at a certain point. Loomis, he has when we see him again in the 4th film, he has a scar on his cheek. I think
that's
his
it.
hand or
yeah.
something.
He's got some scars, then that's it.
Yeah, dude survived like a champ being engulfed in flame. But at the end of this movie, we see Michael stumbling out of on fire.
Yeah.
And that's very. I mean, I'm reminded of people who maybe reference this. I see T2, or just even the first Terminator. We see scenes like that.
Yeah.
That happens a lot in films where that you think the killer's dead, he's not, he's back,
right.
And then he just really dies.
And then he just dies. And actually, Dick Warlock, he got burned from the zippers on his flame suit when he was, because he was actually on fire.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Which is crazy to think that they have zippers on a flame suit.
Or at least the zippers aren't protected in any way.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when they show the up close shot at the very end of Michael, of his face on fire, or at least the mask on fire, and they play the same song as they did in the beginning, they play Mr. Sandman. I think that's just the perfect ending and the perfect shot.
I think it ends pretty well. Yeah. As good as it can end.
Yeah, and there's nothing to let us believe that he could still be alive. They got rid of it. Mm-hmm. I wonder if this is even Carpenter, because at the end of the first one, they wrote in that he lived.
Right.
And I don't think, obviously his intention wasn't to write another one. He wanted that urban myth to always be alive.
Yeah, it's always going to be around. You never know when it's going to come back.
I wonder if the ending of this one, he's like, dude's dead.
Yeah, he's dead.
We're not writing another one. We're done. And he tried to make that really apparent.
Yeah.
And they just weren't having it.
But yeah, I think that this movie is a decent follow-up, I guess.
The more I watch it, the more I enjoy it. But there are some things about it that I find a little difficult. One, there is no real main actor.
Yeah.
Laurie isn't really conscious or responsive that much until the last fourth of the movie.
Right.
So they don't have anybody to help push the movie. Really, if we had to call a final girl in this movie, it would have to be Laurie, but she didn't do anything that resembles a final girl.
She didn't do anything at all.
She hurt him, I guess, with the gun at the end, but she didn't resemble any of the characteristics that we had already defined as a final girl.
Yeah, that she defined as a final girl.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, so we don't really have one in this movie. I think there's not a lot of driving force in this movie. It's kind of them trying to wrap things up and just get over with it.
Yeah, and it's apparent that is what happened.
Yeah,
but it's decent follow up. A lot of people think it's fine. the way it is.
The more I watch it, the more I enjoy it. But that's just because I enjoy the franchise.
Yeah, I think it drags a lot. It's kind of boring.
Yeah.
A lot of a lot of kills and stuff don't really stick like they did in the first one.
They don't. I feel like some of them, like the injection of air into the brain.
Yeah.
I think that they were hoping that was going to be more impactful than it really was. It's cringy because it's an awful way to die, I guess. Yeah. But it doesn't have the same impact as the deaths that happened in the first movie.
Yeah. But it's all right.
Yeah,
it's whatever.
I enjoyed it. I have two culture facts for you. I don't know if you have any.
No.
Okay. My two culture facts. So in December 7th of 1982, Richard Boyer of El Monte, California, murdered Francis and Helen Harbnitz. They were an elderly couple. They were stabbed 43 times by Boyer. And Boyer claimed that he had hallucinations brought on by Halloween 2. So these were known as the Halloween murders. Now, it needs to be noted that Boyer was also under the influence of PCP and marijuana and alcohol when he did these murders. Yeah. But he was found guilty. But when they were in the courtroom, they had the jury watch Halloween 2, and there was a lot of similarities between how he murdered this couple and what was in Halloween 2. So it kind of begs the question of do these movies kind of insinuate, does violence in media insinuate people to do these types of things?
If you're taking a lot of drugs, probably.
Yeah, and I looked at some at homicide cases over the years, trends over the years. I looked at any type of just basically criminal cases and things like that, and there have been some bumps along the past 20 years, but overall actually we're sitting pretty low right now. There's some people who speculate an upward trend, but right now as of 2018 we sit pretty low as far as these types of crimes go, and there's still a threat. I know, I have a bunch of nephews and nieces who aren't allowed to go down the street and go hang out with their friends because they have to do it on their own. Yeah. And this is something like when I was a kid, I would walk really far and it wouldn't matter. I would spend all day in my bike just riding around the neighborhoods and stuff.
Right. So it's the question is it because parents are more protective now, or is it because people are just less mean?
I think we're able to social media has brought us closer, and we're able to. There's this difference between fact and opinion now, whereas previously you had experts and fact was fact and opinion was opinion. But with social media, opinion has started to become a little bit more factual. Yeah. People can treat it like it's fact. So if someone says something is, you should be afraid of this, people are going to start believing it and spreading it around quicker.
Yeah.
As far as media influencing, I'm sure it does on some levels, but I don't think there are many cases that media has influenced people to do such awful things. Like Marilyn Manson has been accused for his music of influencing the killing of high school students, and that wasn't his intention at all. And these are things that
Marilyn Manson is the artist, not the actual serial killer.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think some of these people are going to find a way. What I was able to read was individuals who are suffering from some type of mental illness are more prone to commit violent acts if they are witnessing violence in the media, because they're more susceptible to those things. But from what I can tell, there is no evidence of anybody, any person who is completely normal, being susceptible and committing violent acts by consuming violent media.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting conversation to have. The other thing that I wanted to mention is I talked about earlier, sequels are not were not popular at this time.
Yeah, no, there was not very many sequels back then, and not very many sequels that did better than the original.
Yeah, critically and financially, they're almost all failures.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I looked up the top 100 films that had grossed more, the sequels had grossed more than the original, and I looked at all the ones that happened in 81 and prior,
Yeah.
to see which ones are comparable. And there weren't many at all. So I'm just going to list them off really quick. So we have the second James Bond film, From Russia with Love, grossed 50% more than Dr. No. A Few More Dollars, which was a sequel to A Fistful of Dollars, did 36% more. The sequel to the Black Panther, or I'm sorry, Pink Panther, not Black Panther, sorry.
Pink.
The sequel to the Pink Panther, A Shot in the Dark, did 14% more than the original, and Magnum Force, the sequel to Dirty Harry, did 11% more than the original. Besides that, there really wasn't anything notable.
Yeah.
So Halloween, to even be thought to be made, was probably also a big reason why Carpenter didn't want to do it.
Right.
And
it didn't, though. It didn't make more than the first.
It didn't, no.
I mean, it was still successful.
Cost more, too.
And it cost more.
Quite a bit more, actually.
But it didn't make more at all.
No. So just a testament sequels. Though nowadays sequels are kind of ruined, though, with the whole, Marvel verse and everything. You have sequels upon sequels upon sequels and interconnected with other movies.
And and they're constantly making more money than the original.
Doing really well. We saw Black Panther. Well, that was a cultural movement, Black Panther, but that made over $700 million.
Yeah.
Domestic. We saw Infinity War that just came out. What was that, over $400 million?
Yeah. Well, not even more than that. Domestically, it was close to Black Panther.
Was it? Okay. Yeah. I couldn't remember. I just knew it did quite a bit, and these movies are continually doing a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, the era where sequels don't do well has probably faded a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, the only thing that I have left is our trivia time. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
All right. So I call this, is this quote from Bambi or Halloween 2? So what I'm going to do here, I have 5 of these. I'm going to give you a quote that is either from Bambi or Halloween 2.
All right.
And then I'm going to explain to you where this quote took place in either one of these movies. And you're going to have to tell me which one it is.
All right, I'm ready.
All right, we'll start off with the... Okay, I thought this was a softball one. I don't think it is. We're going to start off with the first one. The quote is, "Hush now, we're almost there." Does Loomis say this to Marion and the officer when they are taking them to the Haddonfield Memorial Hospital? Or does Bambi's mom say this when she is taking Bambi to the meadow at the beginning of the movie?
Okay, so I haven't seen Bambi in a long time. Like when I was 5, maybe. Oh, this is actually difficult. What the heck? I'm gonna say that it was Halloween.
Nope, that was Bambi. All right, next one. Don't look back. Keep running. Keep running. Does Loomis say this to Laurie when they are running away from Michael? Or does Bambi's mom say this to Bambi right before she gets shot?
Okay, this one. I think this one was Halloween.
This one's Bambi.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, Loomis doesn't at all say anything to her when they're running away, other than like them just trying to find another room.
This is ridiculous.
All right. Next quote is, "You talk about him like he's some sort of animal." Does Officer Hunt say this to Loomis when they are talking about Michael? Or does Thumper say this to Bambi when he is talking about the man that killed his mom?
Okay, I know for sure, 100% that this is Halloween.
This is Halloween. That was probably the easiest one I think I have here. Okay, the next one is, "Be calm. Don't get excited." Does Jimmy say this to Laurie when he finds her in the car? Or does a bird say this to another bird when the man is walking through the forest in Bambi?
Okay, this one's got to be Bambi. It's got to be Bambi.
Final answer?
Yeah, that's Bambi. It's
You're
Bambi.
right. You're right. It's Bambi.
All right, there we go.
All right, last one. Why did he send you here then? So, does Loomis say this to Marion when Dr. Rogers sent her to pick him up? Or does Flowers say this to Bambi when he is giving him a pep talk about why God sent him here to become the great prince of the forest? I'm going to give you the quote again. Why did he send you here then?
Okay, I'm going to say that this was Halloween.
This was Halloween.
All right, there you go.
So you got 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5.
That was pretty good.
We're even still.
We're even.
We're positive.
All right, so hopefully we'll keep that as a running thing. I had a lot of fun researching that and figuring quotes that were between the two.
That was a lot harder than I expected.
I tried to make it hard. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. You can reach us at...
You can reach us on Twitter at horror_CV. We're active on there somewhat. You can. We'll be on iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify, and then of course our YouTube account, which is CV Productions.
Yeah, and we're archiving all of our podcasts on our YouTube account. So we'll probably be taking down most likely the first podcast and putting this one up. So on Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play, you'll probably only be able to get this one and the one before that.
Yep. So yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, and hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Peace out.